Hello, boys and girls, and interested parents. I'm going to go through this book talk. This is a good model for the students who are currently reading their novels and soon will be doing their book talk as well. I'm going to do a book talk on the book we had just finished reading in class. It's called Front Desk, and it's written by Kelly Yang. And I'm going to go through and model all the different pages and different topics that you could do. You do not have to do all of the topics inside here that I did. You have to do some of them. And at the end of this presentation, I'll talk about what my expectations are with respect to how many you could do. So let's get started. I'm going to zip through this and not read the content like you might on your presentation just to save time. But here we go, my book talk. Front Desk, written by Kelly Yang, presented by me, Mr. Macaulay. Here are some pictures of the author, Kelly Yang. For example, here's her father, and here she is at a birthday party. She was immigrated when she was 6 years old, and she was from China, and she's written a number of books that are in this series, and she has 3 kids and a dog named Cody. Here's a summary of the events of the book. Mia's family just moved to the U.S. from China, and they feel like they're lucky because they got a job in a motel. But there's a mean guy, Mr. Yao. Now, Mia is only 10 years old, but she's able to work at the front desk. And the big thing that happens is that Mr. Yao decides to sell the motel after them working there for so long. So what are they going to do? You're going to have to read the book to find out. There are many different characters in this book. For example, there's Mia. There is Mr. Yao, who owns the motel. There's Hank, one of the people who lives at the motel and someone who gets discriminated against. There's Lupe, who is one of Mia's best friends. Now, what I did was, because there were so many characters, I actually made 2 pages for the characters, similar to the summary. I found there was so much to say about the summary, I made an extra page for that as well. So there's also Mia's dad and Mia's mom, and there's also Jason, who is Mr. Yao's son and is kind of a little bit sweet on Mia. I'm very lucky that I found all these images were actually on the author's website that I could use. So there's different themes in the book that we read. Here are some of the major themes. One of the major themes was poverty, and that is highlighted by the fact that Mia's family is so poor. There's also the idea of immigration. It highlights the difficulties that immigrants have. And finally, it has to do with different levels of racism, different things that happen to the people who are there and to the immigrants as well. So there is a big problem and a solution in this story. The big problem is that they're going to sell the motel, and the solution is that Mia tries to get people from China to invest. She tries to write an essay to a contest to win a motel. I don't want to give away what actually happens. You're going to have to read the book to find out. But this is what the solution and problem slides look like. Here is one passage that I want to read to you. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to chapter 18, page 81, and I'm going to read the highlighted portion. What I've done is hopefully selected an interesting or important passage that I want to share with everybody. Could be the conclusion, it could be the ending, could be the important part. And it's in this particular book, what I read was a section about being on a roller coaster, how being poor is like a roller coaster. I won't read it to you here, but you get the idea. Now, I'm going to make some connections. There's 3 types of connections you can make. Our book is a text, so you can make a text-to-text connection. That means you're connecting it to another book. You can do a text to the world. That means you're connecting it to something that happens in the world. Or you can connect it to yourself. That would be a text-to-self connection. So one of the connections I thought of was a text-to-text. There's a book called New Kid that I've read, and it also deals with racism, kind of similar to this book. And I know also about text-to-world connections, and that is there are stories in the news about other Black Americans or Canadians who have also had racism happen to them as well. So I made 2 connections from my story to something else. Now, my response to the book, I also want to think about the emotions or other feelings I had when I was reading the book. There was different emotions and feelings I had when I was reading the book. For example, there was joy at different parts, there was outrage at other parts, and I was worried at different points. Here is a slide that talks about interesting facts, and I'm going to talk about some interesting facts that have to do with the author. She said that 60% of the book that we read was real, and about 40% was made up. And she's very smart. She went to university when she was 13, and she would finish law school at 17, but she would not recommend that people do that. And my artifact. An artifact is an actual object, a physical thing that you hold in your hand. It could be a drawing even. It could be some object that somehow relates to the story. What I did on my desk is I put a tip jar, because in the book, Mia makes a tip jar. And I picked that because it kind of shows the kind of problem solving and creative thinker that she was. But the artifact has to be here on the day that you present. It has to be something you hold up and you show in your hands. It can be something simple. It doesn't have to be something fancy. It doesn't have to be something you buy. Just something that you have around the house that somehow you've made a connection to the book. This is recommendations. This is when you talk about, hey, I'd recommend this book if you were this age, or I'd recommend this book if you like sports stories or something like that. But for this one, I said, if you're in about grades 4 to 8 or so, and you enjoy reading stories about real life or social justice, then you'll love this book. And I rated it 4.5 hats out of 5. And I used hats because that's another iconic thing from the story as well. Finally, the last page is kind of my choice. It's kind of wild card. It's like something else I want to talk about. I want to talk about motels because motels are in this novel. And I've got some pictures of motels. Do you know in the United States, there are 91,000 motels, and the industry makes about 190 billion per year. And I did some math, and that means that every motel on average takes in about $2 million. That really surprised me. And that's it. I'm done. I'm finished my presentation. So now let's talk about how many slides do you need to do? Here's a list of the potential slides that I just showed you. There's 12 altogether. I doubled up the summary and I doubled up the characters because I had a lot of characters and a lot to say for the summary. But there are basically 12 different ideas. Now I've taken and put an asterisk beside the ones that are the must-dos. You have to do these. There's 7 essential slides that you need to do. I'm going to call them the must-do topics. Now, if you're in grade 4, I'm going to ask you do at least 8 topics altogether. That means you have to do the must-dos and 1 more. Now, I'm saying at least 8. Please feel free, and I encourage you to do more than 8, but 8 is the minimum, okay? And if you want an awesome mark, doing a few extra will really help out, especially if you do an excellent job. Now, if you're in grade 5, then there are, again, 7 essential. I'm going to say you have to do at least 8 of the topics. Sorry, I can't read. 10 of the topics. That means you pick 3 of the blue guys, but again, it's at least, okay? Anyways, I think that's it. That's my presentation. That gives you an overview about what a presentation could look like. And it also talks about what the expectations are about which topics to do. I'm hoping that this is helpful and it's a good reference for you. And yeah, so every day I'm going to give you time to read and work on your slides. Hey, boys and girls and parents, have a great night. Talk to you later.